Hello friends, good morning. Today I, Dr. Anil S. Kapoor, with my friend Dr. Kamlesh Bhatt from Himmatnagar, will discuss with you business report, and primarily we'll be focusing on two types of business report, that is individual and committee. So if you look at the objectives as to what we are going to learn today, that will be, the students will learn about what is report, they will know what is business report, we'll be discussing types of business report, they'll also learn to the distinction between individual and committee report, and they'll also know how to prepare and present a business report. So, Dr. Bhatt.
What is a report? Actually, thousands of reports are presented every day. They are formal reports also, informal reports also. They are crucial reports also, ordinary reports also. So, every day reports are presented. For example, a foreman presents a report about the progress of work carried on under the supervision of a supervisor. Even a bank manager also presents the daily statement of the transactions done in his bank to the head office. Sometimes we have a very important report also. For example, a bank manager submits a monthly report or a weekly report to the head office, particularly on what the problems he has to face in sanctioning loans to the farmers and in recovering the loan from the farmers.
So, can we say simply, if we are to define it, that a report is a communication from someone who has some information to someone who wants to use that information?
This definition is given by C.A. Brown. Now, reports can be both oral and written. You have studied in first year BCom oral communication and written communication. The same objectives and advantages are found here also. For example, oral reports, they are simple and easy. The written report is more accurate. In an oral report, particularly, the reporter may deny the fact, but in a written report, the reporter gives factual information, so he cannot deny what he had said in the report.
That means a written report is a document that can change hands, that can go from one place to other, and the report does not change in that transition. Whereas when we are talking about a report by word of mouth, you have different speakers, and different speakers, when they speak about the same thing, the diction may change, the tone may change, the line may change, the words may change, and the entire let's say conclusion of that report may also change. Whereas in a written report, you have a fixed sort of an information which does not change with the transitions from one place to the other.
Second important thing is an oral report may be vague also, but a written report is accurate and more precise. The third advantage in a written report is that it can be referred again and again, while oral report cannot be referred. So these are the advantages of a written report.
So can we say that a business report is a written document in that way? It is a vital part of the business and the academic worlds, and that is why the academicians and the students learn how to write these reports. The writing of a report involves?
It involves gathering and analyzing information. It involves presenting it appropriately, and at the end of the report, sometimes we find recommendations also.
Could you please analyze what is how do, let's say, a reporter gather? How does a person gather these, let's say, facts?
For example, suppose we have to look into the problem of labor's unrest. Then we meet the laborers, we meet the labor officer, we meet the officers also, secretary and managers also, and then we collect the facts from those people. that is gathering of the information.
So in that way, gathering of information means collection of information, and that information can be collected from various points. But the most important thing is that those informations need to be analyzed. And who analyzes them?
The reporter, he
Analyzes
the facts gathered by him.
And then they should be presented in a proper fashion.
At the end of the report, he comes to a conclusion and then he presents his recommendations.
Okay, so in that way, business reports
are documents that procure and present relevant data and information in order to, that is, discover significant facts, facilitate important decisions, and seek solutions for specific problems.
Okay. So business reports are systematic attempts to answer questions and solve problems. These are the problems of business, and for that they include the following activities, that is planning, then you have research, then you have organization, and then the presentation.
Business reports can be classified on the basis of its purpose, its function, frequency of issue, legal formalities, and nature of subject dealt with, and number of persons.
Just for an example, when you're talking about the purpose of the report could be mainly informative, just to give some sort of an information. If a person gives only information, he may not be, let's say, likely to give an analysis or recommendation. He is only, let's say, required to give certain information. Whereas in analytical reports, the reporter has to give certain analysis, and in other reports he has to also give conclusions. Similarly on function,
in function, it can be classified in two parts, that is informative report and interpretative report. Informative report means the reporter gives only the information which he has collected from various sources. For example, in a college, we have a letter from higher authorities to give information regarding the student strength in the college. Then we collect data from the office and submit it to the government. That is informative report, which includes only information. And interpretative report, that is analyzes the data, comes to a particular conclusion, and it gives recommendations also. So we can say that informative report is only the presentation of data, and interpretative report is analyzing and giving recommendations at the end of the report.
Similarly, you have reports based on the frequency of issue, that is how often you have to present those reports. Some reports could be every quarterly report, some reports could be half yearly, some reports could be annual reports, and these reports are generally the internal reports of the organization, which have to be presented at a specific given time.
We can also say that periodic reports also, and we have special reports also. Periodic reports, they are present periodically, for example annually, semi-annually, monthly, or daily report also. They are prepared on recurring problems, but special reports, they are prepared on non-recurrent problems.
And again, Dr. Bhatt, the legal formalities?
Actually, according to legal formalities, we can classify them as statutory report and non-statutory report. In statutory report, we present the report according to the laws laid down, and in non-statutory report, we do not follow the laws, we only follow the prescribed format.
And the distinction on the basis of subject?
As far as subject distinction is concerned, we have two classifications. Number one is problem solving and another is technical report. In problem solving, we concentrate on the problem, the particular problem, and we present the report to the higher authorities. And in technical report, we present data with or without comments.
And lastly, you have reports on the basis of the number of persons. Just for an example, an individual report is prepared by an individual, that is one person, whereas a committee report requires more than two people. So, report and the purpose of the report. On that basis, you could divide, let's say, report into the following here categories. One is to provide information. Informational report contains objective statistical data or facts. Writer does not interpret or draw conclusions from that data. Again,
it can be analyzed. It can be used to analyze data and information also. Analytical reports may suggest possible interpretations of data or offer solutions to problems.
and similarly, you have let's say reports to persuade. Persuasive reports present and interpret data and suggest a course of action.
It can be on annual basis also, that it describe developments of organization during past year and valuable public relations tool. It is used as valuable public relations tool.
And similarly, you have policy and procedure reports in which the reporter outlines, explains and sets terms for company policies, states how to comply with these certain company policies.
In minutes, details actions, discussions in business meetings, reminds meeting participants, updates and non-participants. That information is provided in minutes.
So, business report.
It is analytical business report that is provide data, analysis and conclusions on the issues that the writer has been asked to investigate. Such reports often provide recommendations for the readers to consider, but only on request.
So here this is very important that the person submits the report to a higher authority who has asked for it, and again he gives information that is relevant and information that he has been asked to provide.
Now the types of business reports, which is a very important topic for all the students. There are two types of reports, individual report and a committee report. Now individual report is prepared and presented by an individual, that is a single person. Generally, routine business inquiries and simple problems are entrusted to individual. Individual report is written in the form of a business letter, that we have studied in first year BCom, that it has most of all the regular parts which we find in a business letter also. The layout of business report, it is like the layout of a business letter also, in which we write first the heading. Now you have studied in first year BCom that the heading should contain the name of the firm and the address of the firm. That is in business report also, the heading contains the name of the firm and the complete address. Then we present the date either in American form or in British form. Then we write the inside address. Now in individual report, the heading and the inside address, they are the sometimes same one, because the report presented by a secretary or a manager is to be submitted to the higher authorities of the same company. So we find the address in the heading and the inside address the same one. Then we write the salutation, that is dear sir or dear sirs. And immediately after the salutation, that is between the salutation and the body of the report, we write the subject line. And in an individual report, the subject line starts with report on. For example, if we prepare a report on labor unrest, then we have to write in subject line report on the labor's unrest in apprentice training center. Then the first paragraph of an individual report contains the resolution, when the board of directors meeting held, and when the instructions were given to a person to prepare a report. So the reporter has to present that in accordance with the instructions given to me at board of directors meeting held on, for example, 5th August 2011, he has investigated the problem, and at the end of the first paragraph he writes, I submit my report as below.
Again, the students should remember that the subject of the report should be distinctly stated, and it should stand distinctly, it should stand differently from the body and the salutation. again the body part is the most important part because it contains the crux, that is we have already talked about, that is the collection of data, and the analysis is contained in the body part. And in the complementary clause, sir, please could you specify the
in complementary clause, that is written at the end of the report, that is on the right side of the report, and usually we write yours faithfully, and then the signature of the person who has prepared the report, and the designation of the person, whether secretary or a sales manager or a manager or personal officer. That is the layout of an individual report.
In the signature. Let's see the structure of an individual report. So in this structure you can see that there is a heading which comes in the middle or the center of the page at the, let's say, upper end, and again there is the address of the firm. Here you have Bhatt and Kapoor Company Limited, Industrial Estate, Himmatnagar 4, that is the address. Just below the address you leave one space and then you have the date. Here for an example you have the date October 5th 2011. Then
we have inside address on the left side of the letter sheet. It contains the designation of the person and the name of the firm which he or she represents, and then the complete address of the firm.
Here again students will note that the inside address and the heading are the same because it is an internal report that is being submitted.
Immediately after an inside address, we write the salutation. Here on the screen you can see "Dear Sir" is a salutation used in this report, and after that we write the subject line, and it starts with "Report on."
Okay, and after that you have the data that has been collected and the data that has been analyzed.
Then if the recommendations were asked to present, then the reporter present recommendations at the end of the report, and that paragraph starts with "It is my considered opinion that," or we can say "I am of the view that."
And then you have the complementary clause in which you have "Yours faithfully XYZ Secretary." Here the students will note that in yours you do not use an apostrophe before S, because many students make this mistake while writing in the examinations.
Another thing that you have to remember in mind is whenever we write "yours faithfully," the first letter should be in capital form and comma should be used after complementary clause. Then we have the signature of a person and his designation.
Okay.
Now who can write individual report? Generally the managers, secretaries, sales managers, they are interested to prepare an individual report, and they are generally assigned the duty of preparing individual reports, and individual reports are addressed to higher authorities
who might have asked for those individual reports. Then the committee report. After the individual report you will see the committee report. A committee has a very unique sort of a spelling in which you have 2M, 2T and 2E. And that is why you could say a committee is formed when 2M, 2T and 2E come together, which also says that a committee generally comprises more than 2 individuals. You need more than 2 individuals in a committee generally.
Now what is the format of committee report? Committee report does not follow business letter layout. Now what is the difference between committee report and individual report? There are 4 differences. That is, it does not include the heading. In committee report we do not prepare heading. We do not write even inside address also. We do not write salutation in a committee report, and complementary clause that is not written at the end of the report.
So here the students will know that while writing or drafting a committee report in the examination, they will straight away start with the subject line and they will straight away write the committee report. Whereas in an individual report, they will have to write the inside address, they will have to write the heading, they will have to write the date, and they will have to start with the salutation.
Now see the difference between the subject line in individual report and a committee report. In individual report it starts with "report on," and in a committee report it starts with "report of the committee on." if a subcommittee is preparing a report, then the subject line should be report of the subcommittee on. Then in the first paragraph, we have date on which committee was formed. We have the resolution number when it was passed in directors meeting, the authorization of the committee, and the important point we have to remember is there should be sufficient gap between the formation of the committee and the presentation of the report, because the committee report is prepared by more than 2 persons, so they devote time to collect data, they devote time to analyze the data, and they come to a conclusion unanimously. So they need at least 3 or 4 months sometime. It depends upon the nature of the problem investigated by them. But even though we find that in a committee report there is a gap of 3 or 4 months between the resolution passed or the information received to prepare a report and when it was submitted.
Again, in an individual report, there is again a gap between the formation of, let's say, the individual or the reporter who will report, and at the same time in the committee report also you have a gap. But then in an individual report the gap could be lesser than in a committee report, because an individual deals with common day-to-day problems, whereas a committee report deals with more serious, let's say, kinds of problems in business. Then the body of the report is followed by date and signature. If we can see the, let's say, previous slide again, if you can here see with that there should be a sufficient gap between, let's say, this the formation of the committee and its presentation. But then here after the report is completed, you have the date and the signature.
Now when we find the signature at the end of the report, the difference is in an individual report we write complimentary clause, that is yours faithfully. Here we write signed on behalf of the committee, and 2 persons generally they sign the report. One is a secretary and another is chairman, and just opposite to the signature we mention the date on which the report is submitted to the higher authorities.
But then but sir, if the committee is unanimous means
all the members they agree with the decisions taken by them, that is unanimous decision.
જે આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં કહીએ તો કદાચ એમને આપણે એકમત કહી શકીએ કે આખી કમિટી જે એકમત હોય તો એને આપણે યુનાનિમસ કહીશું.
Generally the secretary and chairman they sign the committee report if the committee is unanimous on the decisions.
But then in cases where the committee is not unanimous, then what happens?
Each member signs separately mentioning personal opinions.
So let's see the layout of the committee report.
The layout of the committee report, it is on the screen. So it starts with the subject line, that is report of the committee on. Then the first paragraph we have the instructions received by the committee members, the resolutions when it was passed on the directors board of directors meeting. So it can be in this way, in accordance with the instructions given to and powers vested in it by resolution number 8 passed on 5th August 2011, the committee minutely studied the causes of labor's unrest in apprentice training center. The committee submits its report as below.
And then it is followed by the data.
Then in a committee report, the data they are analyzed and investigated by the committee, and at the end of the committee report we find recommendations by the committee members. Now if you compare individual report and a committee report, in an individual report the recommendations they are presented with this line, that it is my considered opinion that, or I am of the view that. Here the committee members they present recommendations, so it may start with the committee is of the view that, or the committee believes that, and then the recommendations of the committee. Now at the end of the report we have signed on behalf of the committee, and secretary and chairman generally they sign the business report, that is committee report, and at the end we find date on which the report is submitted just opposite the signature.
You'll see distinction between individual and committee report. Individual report adopts a middle style.
While committee report adopts formal style or presentation.
So an individual report is neither too formal nor too informal.
A committee report generally adopts impersonal tone.
Similarly, an individual report is written in first person singular, that is I.
A committee report uses third person singular. So we find the committee submits below, the committee believes that, the committee is of the opinion that. So third person singular is used.
Similarly, an individual report is prepared by an individual and hence is more subjective than the committee report in presentation.
A committee report generally has 3 or more members. Exceptionally, there can be one-man committee also. When we have one-man committee, then we find at the end of the report, the committee submit the report. So plural is used when it is prepared by one man.
But then individual committees are very rare, and even very rarely we can also use we in an individual in a committee report. That is, the Americans do it these days because the students, when they leave the college and when they really join the business world, they may find certain examples where the committee mentions we. But then it becomes a bit more informal, and the Americans generally use it. But then here in India or in other parts of the world, we generally do not use it. We use the third person for the committee.
Although there are differences in the number of investigators, layout, structure, presentation, narration and tone, the two reports differ primarily in their format, systematic presentation and the seriousness of the matter investigated.
So it could be said that a committee investigates matters of more serious or complex nature while compared to an individual who is entrusted with the job of investigating matters which may not be more complex or which may be more simpler in nature.
What are the similarities between an individual report and a committee report? Both reports endeavor to discover significant facts, facilitate important decisions, and seek solutions for specific problems.
So again, any report, whether it is an individual report or a committee report, it is formed to discover certain significant facts about business. Again, these are formed to facilitate certain decisions because it is a decision making process, and that is why a committee report or an individual report becomes very important, because on the basis of those investigated facts and the recommendations, the company or the firm may decide about certain policy decisions. Again,
here I would like to add something, Mr. Kapoor, that a report is an important management tool used in decision making. So both the reports, individual and committee, they leads to the decisions making.
And that is why the students should know about the seriousness of the preparation of a report, because a report while we are writing in examinations, we may just go and mug up and write a few reports. But then when you really go in the business world, this report becomes a very important tool in decision making, as Dr. Bhatt said. Again, they seek solutions for specific problems.
The body of both the reports have similar structure. The first paragraph refers to the date, resolution, authorization and scope for the reports. There should be sufficient gap between the information received by the person to prepare a report and to submit the report. Then the procedure adopted by individual and committee to gather the facts, analyze and submit it is mentioned. The procedure is the same one. Then facts discovered through investigation are presented, and then recommendations, if any, are presented in both the individual as well as the committee report. So the body of the report is the same one in individual report and a committee report. The procedure is also the same one. The only difference that we find is an individual report is prepared by a single person, while the committee report is prepared by more than 2 persons. Let us now see one example of individual report and committee report. For example, if you have been asked to prepare a report on labor's unrest in an apprentice center, and if we want to prepare an individual report, then first we have to write the name of the company, that is Bhatt and Kapoor Company Limited. Then on the right side we write the address in brief, for example Ashram Road, Ahmedabad, and immediately after that we write the date. On the left side we write an inside address which contains the name of the firm, the designation, and the complete address. So we can write the inside address in an individual report in this way: the directors, then Bhatt and Kapoor Company Limited, then Ashram Road, Ahmedabad, and the pin code number. Then we write the salutation, that is dear sirs, and immediately after salutation we write the subject line. The subject line in an individual report starts with report on, so we can write report on labor's unrest at apprentice training center. Then we write the first paragraph, which includes the resolution, the director's meeting date, and the information which you want to present. For example, when we prepare the first paragraph in an individual report on labor's unrest, it should start with, in accordance with the instructions given to me at Board of Directors meeting held on 5th August 2011, I collected the data and now submit the report as below. So the first paragraph in individual report and the committee report is altogether the same one. Then we present the collected data, then we present analysis also the data, and at the end of the report we write, I am of the view that, or it is my considered opinion that. At the end of the report we write recommendations, 1, 2, 3, what are the recommendations, and at the end of the report we write complimentary clause, yours faithfully, and signature. Now the important part of individual report is the body of the report, in which the data and investigation analysis is presented. For example, if we prepare a report on labor's unrest, then we collect the data through various sources. We consult the laborers, we consult the labor officer, we consult the officers also, and then we collect the data, their demands, the demands of the laborers, and then we investigate that if we accept the demands, it may have any problem or financial problem to the company or not. And keeping in mind the welfare of the laborers also and the financial position of the company, we present the information in body of the report, and then we give recommendations to the person who has asked us to prepare a report, that is the directors. And if they follow the recommendations, then the environment of the company may be very good and conducive to the laborers and the officers also.
And a similar example can be converted into a committee report. The only thing is that in a committee report you will need more than 2 people to investigate. It will not start with the traditional heading or the inside address or the date or the salutation. It will straight away start with the subject line, and the difference between the two subject lines, as Dr. Bhatt will tell you, is
the difference is in individual report it starts with report on, and in committee report it starts with report of the committee on. For example, if we want to write a subject line on labor's unrest in an apprentice center, we can write report of the committee on labor's unrest at of apprentice at training center. Then the first paragraph in individual report and the committee report is similar. Here also we have to write the date on which the information is given to you to prepare a report, that is given to the committee to prepare a report, when the board of directors meeting was held, and what problem is entrusted to investigate. For example, if we want to prepare the first paragraph on labor's unrest, we can prepare it in this way. Under the instructions given to and powers vested in it by resolution number 8 passed at Board of Directors meeting held on 5th August 2011, the committee minutely studied the causes of labor's unrest. And the last line is, the committee submits its report as below. Then the body of the report. The body of the report in individual report and the committee report is similar. Here also the reporters, they collect the data, they investigate, they analyze, and at the end of the they present recommendations. So collection of data, analysis of the data, and conclusion, they are the similar one. The difference that we find at the end of the report is presenting recommendations. In an individual report, the recommendations, they are presented with this line: it is my opinion that, or I am of the view that. Then we present the recommendations number 1, 2 and 3. Then in a committee report, the committee recommends that, or the committee is of the view that, then the recommendations. At the end of the report, in individual report, it's signed by a secretary. So with complimentary clause, yours faithfully, the secretary completes the report. In a committee report, we have to write signed on behalf of the committee, and generally secretary and chairman, they sign the report and submit it to the authorities. The important thing is, in an individual report, the date is written immediately after the address on the first page, that is below the address. In a committee report, the address, the date on which the report is submitted is written at the end of the report, just opposite the signatures.
So it might have been very clear to the students by now how they can write the two types of reports, and in both cases you have seen the transition from an individual report to a committee report is a transition from the first person to the third person, a transition from objectivity to subjectivity. Similarly, there are hints for writing a good report. So hints for report writing could include that you should write short but clear headings. Similarly, a reporter or a person who writes these reports should experiment with wordings that tell who, what, when, where, why, because these are the WH questions that need to be investigated, and these are the, let's say, questions on which generally the reporter or the investigator gives his or let's say their collective considered opinion. Let's see the next slide.
Now, what are the characteristics of a good report? You have studied in first year BCom qualities of a business letter. The same qualities or characteristics we find in a good report also. The first one is precision. Now, the report should be clear, and it should be presented accurately also. So precision should be observed while preparing a report. The second one is accuracy of facts. So the report should be factually accurate. Whatever fact you present in a report, they should be accurate, because if the information or the data is not accurate, that it may mislead the higher authorities in taking any decision. And we know that a report is a management tool used in decision making. So relevant facts should be presented, and exclusion of relevant fact also sometimes create problem. So while preparing a report, we should keep in mind that relevant information should be presented and irrelevant information should not be presented, because it may mislead the higher authorities. Number third is the relevance of the report. Now that is very important, because it should be presented in a relevant way. What information is relevant to the report, that should be only presented. Otherwise the report may become very bulky also. There is not a fixed length of a report, but it depends upon the nature of the problem investigated. So relevant facts should be presented only. For example, if you are asked to submit a report on the student strength of your college, then you have to present only student strength only. Other information you should not include because it may mislead the higher authorities. Then the important point is a good report should be reader orientation. So it should be reader oriented. The reporter should know who is going to read the report and who is going to use the information later on. So it should be reader orientation. Number 5 is objectivity of recommendations. That is very important. The recommendations presented at the end of the report, they should be impartial and objective. The reporter's self-interest should not focus in a committee or an individual report. Number 7 is simple language should be used because if it is presented in simple language, then it could be comprehended very easily and the steps can be taken very speedily also. Then as per business letter, these are the 2 qualities which we find in a good report also, that a report should be clear and it should be brief. Now the brevity is very important while preparing a business report, but there is not a fixed condition that it should be of 3 pages or 4 pages. It depends upon the nature of the subject or nature of the problem investigated. Sometimes it can be presented in 3 or 4 pages also. Sometimes it is presented in 100 pages also, and some reports they cover even 1000 pages also.
Could we say, Dr. Bhatt, that the report should use only as many words as it requires? Because
yes,
it should be precise and it should be brief. To be precise means it should be to the point. What the investigator has found. He should not beat around the bush and, let's say, talk about things which might not be relevant to the report and which might consume more time or which might even divert the decision making process. At the same time, it should also be very economical, because being brief means very economical in that way. Yes.
Now at the same time, to prepare a report in brief, we should keep in mind that relevant information should be presented. At the cost of relevant information, we cannot make the report very brief. So it should cover all the data, all the collected data, analysis and recommendations. So it depends upon the nature of the problem investigated.
Now, to write a good report, what you can do is that you could use transitions. Transitions are words or phrases that link ideas together, because students generally find it difficult to move from one idea to the other idea. How to connect these ideas becomes more important for us. And so for that you need transitions. Transitions means to transit, means to go from one to the other.
You should use transitions to help readers move from one section, one paragraph to one sentence to another. So when we move from one paragraph to another paragraph, the transition words, they should be used.
How to use transitions? Just for an example, to transit, to give additional information, you could use words like moreover, in addition, or in addition to, or besides.
To show causal relationship between two sentences, we can use the transition words like therefore, because, consequently, etc. When we want to compare two things in a report, we can use the transition words like similarly, in comparison, still. And to compare or contrast two things, we can use the words which are used in a contrast, conversely, whereas, however, though, but. These type of transition words we can use while preparing a report to compare or contrast two things.
This would mean that a person who presents a report does not only need to be very well versed in the business, but also needs to be very well versed in language. And that is why it becomes an academic, let's say, subject as well, because it is a business subject. But then how you use those words, how you transit from one idea to the other idea helps in the decision making process, because reports ultimately are written to come to a conclusive decision making process.
Now to express intensification, we can use the word indeed, in any event, and in fact. And in summarizing the report, we can use the word in brief, in short, to sum up. With these words, we can sum up the report also.
And these could also tell about the recommendations, where he says that to sum up, these are the recommendations, or in brief, these are the recommendations, or in brief, this is what I want to state. Now you have a list of words which could be helpful to students if they are seeing, and if they could make a note of those list of words. These list of words tell you how you can use these different transitors to join or to transit from one sort of an idea to another.
For example, additional information if you want to present in a report, you can use the words and, further, moreover, again, next, what's more, also, in addition, equally, and important.
Similarly, if you want to present a conclusion, or conclusively if you want to say something, if you want to infer, you could use words like therefore, thus, in conclusion, consequently, on the whole, as a result, hence, in brief.
In a report, details and emphasis should be on the particular words. So we can use for emphasis, for example, for instance, to illustrate, indeed, in other words, in short, obviously. These are the words which can be used to emphasis on a particular point.
And similarly, if you're talking about a chronology means what comes after. And for that you could use soon, afterwards, finally, then, previously, formerly, next, and immediately.
In preparing a report, the contrast words, they are also used. For example, however, but, although, nonetheless, in contrast, meanwhile, yet, on the other hand, and conversely. These are the words can be used to show contrast.
Again, these words become more important because a student, by using these words, if he or she practices writing reports, it could, let's say, help them transit from one idea to the other in a better way, and which is required not only for the examination but which is also required in the business world.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Kapoor, if we have an individual report and a committee report on a particular problem, then we can present it in a prescribed format for individual report and a committee report. So in the examination, the students, they should keep in mind the format of the individual report and the committee report, the procedure of preparing an individual report and a committee report, and what comes next and what comes at the end of the report. These points they should keep in mind, so that they can prepare a very good report in examination also, and later on in their professional fields also.
Again, we have only 5 minutes left, and these 5 minutes are for the students. If they wish to interact or ask specific questions, we would be very happy to discuss those things.